First of all, I'd like to comment on the fact this is a scarce resource, the spectrum, and it is a public good, as has been said. And in Spain, under our legislation, the spectrum is recognised as a public good falling under the mandate of the state, and as such all reforms should ensure that we use this resource more effectively because it's scarce and it's a public good. So improving the management of spectrum is, we're convinced, a step forward, and that will contribute to Europe's economic growth and recovery and to the creation of new skilled jobs. In Spain, that's the way that we consider this, and last Friday the Council of Ministers adopted a draft economic sustainability law covering various different aspects on the way we can use spectrum for economic recovery. We also feel that better coordination and harmonisation at European level is something that needs to be increased because that will benefit citizens as they use this resource. And here we are also going to have to look at the way in which we use the digital dividend across Europe. And we think that spectrum should be playing an important role in identifying solutions for the introduction of new uses of the spectrum which will be compatible with those that we currently have. We also need to step up the effectiveness in which we use spectrum as it stands. And here I'd like to stress that we also have to be cautious and ensure that the provision of current services don't suffer at all or deteriorate. We have to ensure the absence of interference and the guarantee of quality, therefore, in the current applications of the spectrum. As such, and as other speakers have said, it's very important that we use technology which will make it possible to ensure that monitoring of the spectrum and applications of the spectrum aren't interfered with, and we need to increase effectiveness. And the digital dividend will be one of those aspects that, to a great extent, will contribute to reducing the digital divide. And we are convinced that this resource is going to contribute significantly to this. And it's very important. We've already established one way or another, because Spain was the first country that introduced 2015 as our goal. And it's very important that this is a starting date, but before then operators need to know what spectrum will be available, what conditions will be set up, so that their business plans can be drawn up not from 2015 onwards but before then.
En este sentido, muy importante,
and therefore it's very important that the use of broadband was decided upon. This isn't going to oblige the member states to dedicate this spectrum for the digital dividend, but it is important that they bear in mind the changes that will be introduced and the conditions that will be laid down for their use. We are all convinced, therefore, that we should bear in mind what our goal is, and that is a more effective use of spectrum. Thank you.
Thank you. And now is Germany, please.
Thank you very much. We welcome this summit as a welcome opportunity to have an exchange of ideas and to discuss our expectations and hopes in future policy. Everyone agrees that we don't have sufficient spectrum for everyone, and the frequencies available are extremely scarce and valuable. We have to weigh up how much spectrum can be allocated to what use. Frequency policy is linked to how we can participate in helping new technologies. The broadband strategy is therefore part of a discussion on overall strategy. And it is very important because we want to have sufficient spectrum, and where we have not got cabling, then radio can help to fill that digital divide. 360 megahertz for wireless networks for telecoms usage is what we are looking for, and the chances of the digital dividend are enormous in what they offer us by way of potential. If we can have harmonized frequency sectors across Europe, that would be very useful. At the moment, unfortunately, we have large differences. We would have to have member states being more flexible in the future. With a view to international negotiations, this point also has to be borne in mind, especially how we can have a reallocation within the ITU. Policy programs in the Council and with the European Parliament will obviously need to be thrashed out on a joint basis. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then we come back to the stakeholders. The floor is for Mr. San Miguel from Telefónica.
Thank you. Spectrum is key for the development of wireless technologies and the information society. It is fundamental to stimulate economic recovery and growth, innovative services to all European citizens. Mobile broadband are providing and will provide services and applications that will mean unique benefits to the European society and will be massively used by citizens and machines in the future. Mobile broadband access is expected to become increasingly as important, if no more than fixed broadband access, thereby enhancing the degree of inter-platform competition between fixed and wireless technology solutions. Networks to be deployed need to offer coverage, capacity and quality. To build a modern mobile broadband network, three things are required: spectrum, modern technology and access to new sites. Spectrum bands differ in their characteristics. You need more sites to operate a network in higher frequency bands, which is why the lower frequencies are of high interest and are subject of such debate. You need different amount of spectrum to support different services. You can usually obtain larger bandwidths at higher frequencies, and you need wider bandwidths to offer higher customer speeds. This is why a holistic approach to a spectrum is essential. As well as the amount of spectrum and its location, a spectrum must be used efficiently. And as an example, a spectrum usage is more efficient the wider the operating channel bandwidth. Technical harmonization, has been said, is essential, not only to achieve economies of scale, but also to facilitate roaming and to promote efficient use of the radio spectrum. So standards have an important role. Electronic communication network operators play a fundamental part in the development of both technology and standards such as LTE. Telefónica is committed to deploy LTE networks in the future with several trials ongoing. Network capacity continues to be stretched, and we expect the demand for mobile services to continue to increase in the coming years. Our projections says that the increase will be 20 times the traffic we are managing today in our networks. So in other order, it is clear that the average revenue per user will not grow at anything like that rate. With an increase in the number of customers, the number of services per customer, and their demand for increasing peak data rates and throughput, we believe there will be a need for more mobile spectrum during this decade. There should be a review of spectrum allocations between at least 400 MHz and 5 GHz to ensure that there will be sufficient spectrum allocated to mobile broadband through to at least 2020. This review should take place with the framework of the Radio Spectrum Policy Programme and should include all radio services. Telefónica plans to invest billions of euros over the next few years, and developing the right radio spectrum policy programme will encourage not only to obtain the bigger services for our customers, but also to devote our investment to technology